How is this blind Paralympic athlete able to shoot at targets this precisely? The Winter Paralympics might be the most misunderstood and most fascinating sporting event on Earth. Here, technology, innovation and human ambition redefine what we thought physical limits were. In this video, we are looking behind the curtain to understand how these games really work, why it sparks serious controversy, and how technology and brilliant ideas make this all possible. Once you understand everything a bit more, the Winter Paralympics become 10 times more fascinating to watch. First of all, what disciplines are we talking about in the Winter Paralympics? We have alpine skiing, biathlon, cross-country skiing, ice hockey, snowboard and wheelchair curling. Yes, I know, that is all. In the Winter Olympics there are 16 disciplines, so why fewer sports? Not because Paralympic athletes couldn't do them. The real challenge is something much more complex. Creating events that are safe, globally accessible and most importantly, fair across very different types of impairments. Every sport needs enough athletes, enough classification depth and a structure that produces meaningful competition. So sports are chosen that fulfill all these requirements. Let me show you why each of these sports is far more innovative than it first appears. Para-biathlon. Let's start with the sport that sounds impossible on paper. This seemingly impossible combination of cross-country skiing and precision shooting. Athletes race the course and then shoot 5 targets. But how does that work for visually impaired athletes? Technology bridges certain impairment so that the athletes can perform at their best. These rifles send an infrared signal to the target. The closer the muzzle points to the center, the higher the tone in the athlete's headphones. So they operate completely on sound. While skiing, the visually impaired athletes are guided by a sighted athlete, and that by their voice only, nonetheless going at full speed. And if they win, both are rewarded with medals. Other differences are, the target is 10, not 50 meters away, and the athletes do not carry their rifles, but get them at the range. So the big question is, how do we make this fair for everybody? This is where the Paralympic classification system comes in. This system has the goal of making these competitions as fair as possible, and it happens in 3 main steps. Step 1. Eligible impairment. First, you only enter a sport if you have an impairment that the sport accepts. And this is sport specific. Being eligible in one sport doesn't automatically mean you're eligible in another. Step 2. Minimum impairment criteria. Then the classifiers check if the impairment is severe enough to actually affect the key task of that sport. If you don't meet that threshold, it doesn't mean you're not impaired. It means the sport rules say your impairment doesn't impact the performance enough in that sport to justify a para class. Step 3. Sport class. It usually includes an analysis of medical documentation, a physical sport-specific test, and then the observation in training or in competition in order to confirm the class matches the real performance. And to further improve your understanding, these are the used subclasses in these disciplines. Standing, sitting and visually impaired, which are used in these sports. Ice hockey and wheelchair curling only use one class for everybody. And the main change starts here. In time-based sports like biathlon, cross-country and alpine skiing, the stopwatch time is then converted into a factored time, basically a corrected result, designed to account for how much the impairment typically impacts performance. And this factor is determined by your level of impairment within your class. So yes, you can cross the line second and still win, because the medal is decided by the factored time. Next sport. Para-alpine skiing is one of the most high-stakes sports at the Winter Paralympics. On steep slopes at insane speeds, standing racers can hit around 125 km an hour. Sitting racers around 115. So standing racers aren't just skiing with a disability. Many are fighting asymmetry, spasticity or compensations on every single turn. Some race with one ski plus outriggers, which are crutches with tiny skis that are as important as the main ones. The others with 2 skis, with or without outriggers, all while reaching crazy high speeds. Sitting para-alpine skiing is basically you racing down an icy steep mountain while controlling your chassis with your upper body muscles only. Many sit skiers have an impairment affecting legs and trunk. Common examples include spinal cord injury or spina bifida. So the sit ski itself is pure engineering, a custom-made molded seat on a metal frame with a high-duty suspension to keep ski snow contact as much as possible, and using bilateral outriggers for stability and proper steering control. Vision-impaired para-alpine skiing is basically downhill skiing as a two-person precision team. The sighted guide skis in front and feeds a non-stop stream of cues like the line, the tempo or other hints, using either a loudspeaker or motorcycle headsets, but they are not allowed to touch, ever. And here's the coolest part, because it's truly a team performance, guides can win Paralympic medals too. And the rules are brutal. The guide has to stay close, within 3 gates in a slalom and within 2 gates in a super G or downhill race. And the guide must pass every gate as well. So one spacing mistake can end the run instantly. Para cross-country skiing is endurance racing at the purest. Just speed, pacing and brutal climbs. Standing athletes race with physical impairments, using the same classic skate techniques you know, while vision-impaired athletes race also with a sighted guide. Every turn, bump and downhill called out in real time. Sit ski athletes use a custom-made lightweight sled with 2 skis to propel themselves forward, using only their upper body strength. Their seating devices are all uniquely built for the athletes in order to accommodate their individual situation and to enable the best performance possible. No skating, just pure upper body strength and technique. Para ice hockey is pure action, and yes, full checking is allowed. This is not a softer version of hockey. Players sit on a sled with 2 blades, so the puck can slide underneath. Each hand holds a stick. One end has the classic blade, and the other metal picks they use to push themselves forward. There's only one sports class. That means women can compete against men, even though most teams are predominantly men. All athletes have a permanent impairment affecting their legs, so they're all grouped together in one group. Snowboarding on the highest level. Athletes are grouped in 2 lower limb affected classes, one for more severe and the other one for milder impairments, and one upper limb affected class, all of which can completely change how you control your board at this pace. They compete in 2 main disciplines. Para-snowboard cross is an adaptive snowboard racing discipline, where athletes compete on a course with jumps, rollers and turns, aiming to reach the finish line first. Banked slalom is a time trial event, where riders race individually through a winding course of banked turns, focusing purely on speed. Wheelchair curling is like the regular curling, except you remove the one thing that saves bad throws. There is no sweeping, so every stone has to be perfect the moment it leaves the hand. Athletes deliver from a stationary wheelchair, and the wheels must stay in contact with the ice during the throw. As fascinating as these sports are, fairness is complicated. In the past, individual athletes have exaggerated their impairments to enter a more advantageous class. The International Paralympic Committee has described this as one of the biggest threats to credibility. Some athletes are calling for stricter controls and sanctions. Second, time factors. Analyses suggest that the highest classes win with a disproportionately large share of medals. Athletes with milder impairments may even benefit after factoring. And third, cost and access. High-tech prostheses and sit skis can cost tens of thousands of euros, making it much harder for athletes from poorer countries to enter the sport. That clashes with the ideal of global fairness. In 1976, the first Winter Paralympics had just 2 sports, para-alpine skiing and para-cross-country skiing, and the field was basically amputee and visually impaired athletes. In the early days, athletes were literally experimenting with prostheses on skis. And then, tech didn't just make athletes faster, it expanded who could even compete. In the 1970s, adaptive gear started moving from DIY to real production. Outriggers and sit skis were originally adapted from regular skis, and manufacturers began producing adaptive equipment to meet the growing demand. That's a huge turning point. Suddenly training programs could scale and be accessible for many more athletes. Fast forward to modern legends. Brian McKeever, legally blind, made history in 2010 as the first athlete to name to a country's Olympic and Paralympic team. He didn't start at the Olympics, but then came back a month later and won 3 Paralympic gold medals, racing with a sighted guide and just crushing the competition. Or Bibian Mentos-Spee, a pioneer of para-snowboard, who returned from cancer surgery with barely any time to prepare and still won double gold at Pyongyang in 2018. She's one of the clearest examples of nothing stands in my way, but she unfortunately passed away in 2021. Also Lauren Worstelcroft, born without legs below the knee and without her left arm below the elbow. She won 5 gold medals at Vancouver in 2010. And the crazy detail, she was also an electrical engineer who helped design the power infrastructure for the same games she dominated. So the Winter Paralympics are proof that limits aren't objective. They can be bent, moved, or torn down completely. You want to learn how prosthetics really work? Take a look at this video, and I see you next time at Got It!